Hey guys, welcome to Atmoseeker. My name's Sebastian, and today I'm going to make something. Today I'm going to show you how I had this project in mind with these little LED flame bulbs that I bought ages ago for a project to help spruce up the dungeon a bit with some LED lighting. It's these LED flame bulb torches, and I think they came up pretty well, so let's go have a look. So these are just your everyday gym camping mat, EVA foam mats. I use hot glue to stick it all together, and you don't really need any special equipment. I just use a very sharp blade and some scissors. No measuring here, just using a cup that's kind of roughly the same diameter as this bulb to just get an idea of how it's going to piece together. And here I'm just using an impression by pushing the socket into the foam to get the right diameter to fit it in. Multiple passes and a sharp blade of your friend here makes a nice clean cut. This is probably the only specialist equipment I use. It's a heat gun that you use to heat up the foam to make it more malleable, so once it cools it holds that shape. Just gluing that socket piece together. I can't remember what this tube was from, but it's definitely a bit thicker cardstock than what you get with wrapping paper and such. No specific angle here. I tried at 45 degrees, but it wasn't steep enough, so I went a little steeper just so it didn't stick out from the wall too far. Bit of a seam here, but we'll cover it up with one of the bars that'll protrude out of the top of this thing. Just lining it up saves time on measuring multiples of things. And wrapping it around just to see the circumference, how it's going to fit, and just cutting it with scissors until it fits, really. If you cut too much off, this foam is great because you can stretch it back a bit more. Using the scissors to just cut away little nicks and chips away from it to make it look like wrought iron. It's really easy to just chip away at it until you get the form that you like. The back side of this foam has a weird textured side to it, so I just try to get the edges of it so it's less visible from the front. Because this is going to be the top of these bars, I actually just shaved off some of that texture part, just so it looks a little nicer. Bending it into shape and just holding it there for a moment. Once it cools, there you go, you got a bent bar. Rinse and repeat a few times, and then just going over it all with the heat gun to well, the foam has this property, when you hit it with heat, the foam kind of seals up, so it's better for painting. Oh, looking alright, but I thought these bars were just bending out a little too far, so just chipping them back, and then trimming them a little bit to kind of blend in with the other nicks and scratches I did. Cutting through the foam sideways, just to make it thinner, so I can make these nice little bolts to place on the top here, just with hot glue. It was clear it wasn't going to balance on the wall very well just to the one pipe, so I'm making this wall plate about 8 by 4 inches to sit flush against the wall to help balance it. Just tracing a copy with a blade helps save time. It's going to be made to look like stone, so it doesn't need to be super accurate. Tracing the pipe onto the top layer, that one has to look good. The one underneath can be a little rougher, as you're not really going to see it because it's going to be attached to the wall. Just has to be big enough for the cable to go through. A few nicks and scratches just to make it look like stone. Using the blade here to just cut a crack down the middle here, I just have to go over it twice just to widen it a bit. This will expand a little bit when I hit it with the heat gun. A little more hot glue. So just going to make these leather looking straps just by cutting a thin piece of the EVA foam, and I'm just going to wrap it around the post part. Should look pretty much like the real thing. A final blast with a heat gun helped get rid of some of those pesky glue wisps. To help harden and protect the surface, I'm using this Mod Podge. It kind of has some resin elements to it, so it should dry nice and hard. And if you go with it undiluted, especially on the cardboard tube, it'll help create an almost fake wood grain to it. Over the top of that, I'm using a very matte black acrylic. This will help tie it all together and make it look like a uniform surface. Alright, let's build up the paint on this torch. I'm just going to start with some Amish grey and build up the stonework here. And a little antique white to help accent the edges. A little tricky here putting on the burnt umber, but just making special attention to the brush strokes here. Basically, the grain of the brush is going to make a wood grain effect. It'll show up a bit more when I go over it with a lighter color. A very light amount of Amish grey loaded up on the brush. I'm just going to dust over the iron bars to help accent some of those edges. The brush I'm using is an old makeup brush, and it's ideal because it has a nice wide surface that's ideal for dusting on paint. Just using a little bit of metallic paint here. It's a copper. It's going to give it a little bit of a rusted look to these iron bars. Then with a little bit of metallic silver, I'm just going to use it a little sparingly and just make it look like it's chipping away underneath. Now just lightly dusting it with the silver to give it a metallic quality. Returning to the post with some raw sienna, with some vertical brush strokes just to mimic the coloration of wood. You can see now the wood grain starting to pop through with this lighter color. This stone was looking a bit too clean, so I dirtied it up with some burnt umber. Now a little matte varnish to seal it all in. Best to spray this outside. Just popping the wiring through. This is a pendant light switch. You can buy these online. They're basically for hanging lights from the ceiling. They have a little light switch attached to the cable. It was a little snug in the top here, but better snug than loose, I reckon. After testing putting it in, I thought the bulbs looked a little bit too clean. I wanted them to look a bit more like fiery embers. So I textured the outside of them with some masking tape, just by making some really rough folds and just wrapping it up to the top. The tape is papery and translucent, so really let that glow come through still, especially when dirtying it up with a little bit of burnt umber and some black. So I'm hoping the effect is what I'm after. It's probably going to make this a little bit wider, but it squeezes in and lights up okay. Make sure to stay tuned to the end of the show to see some close-ups of how it turned out. Turned out alright. It was a fun project to do. And if you want to see more fun projects like that, or any more atmospheric or crafting techniques, please like, share, and subscribe. And with that, I'll see you next time on the next Atmoseeker. I'm Sebastian, and let's create and inspire.